Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Was this better than Fear Street Part 1, 1994? Or was I left feeling like this movie was a little bit poor? Hey guys, welcome to Marcus Loves Movies and welcome to my review of Fear Street Part 2, 1978, the follow-up to Fear Street Part 1, 1994. This obviously goes back in time. If you haven't seen Fear Street Part 1, I recommend you go see that film first, and you can also check out my movie review which I've done of that film. But I'm guessing if you're here watching a review for Part 2, you've already seen Part 1. So let me give you a quick plot outline for Part 2. A summer of fun turns into a gruesome fight for survival as a killer terrorizes Camp Nightwing in the cursed town of Shadyside. The movie stars Sadie Sink, Kiana Madeira, Olivia Scott Welch, and is directed by Leigh Janiak. I'm not actually sure if I'm saying the director's name correctly, so apologies Leigh, wherever you are, if you're watching this review. I'm learning as I go along. So the movies essentially are about evil and witchcraft, and the idea that evil lives under the belly of this town of Shadyside, and it has historic roots, and that's why we're going back. We start off in 1994 in part 1, and then in this movie, part 2, we're going back to 78, and we're going to have a third movie in the trilogy, 1666, which we're going to watch when that comes out, which will be coming out anytime soon now. So the whole idea is that there's evil, there's a spirit of evil, and it affects people in the town, and then these people turn into killers, serial killers, and then we go on a rampage, and that's where you get your slasher horror movie. I appreciate the attempt at a decent plot and backstory, but ultimately it is a pretty standard horror film. You're going to get introduced to a bunch of characters. Some are likable, some are a bit douchey, and then you're going to have a killer in the midst, and then it's going to be a case of, well, who's the next person to get bumped off by this killer? So take it for what it is and enjoy it. And I've seen people talking about this film. I've seen other people discussing it and saying it's a lot of fun, enjoy it for what it is. And I think, yeah, on some level, a film like this, enjoy it for what it is. The plot isn't that deep, it's not that clever, so just enjoy it for what it is. You are waiting to see who's getting bumped off next. But I must admit, I'm not fully on board, and I had some problems with Fear Street Part 1, and some of those problems that I had with Part 1 are now spilling into Part 2. So let me explain. Our main character is called Ziggy, and she's played by Sadie Sink, who you'll recognise from Stranger Things, and she's great in this. She does a really good job of it. But the film kicks off with her being at this camp and other young people at the camp accusing her of being a witch. And not only do they bully her and literally terrorise her, this is no major spoiler because this happens in the first few minutes of the film, but essentially they say, right, you're a witch, so let's burn you, let's try kill you off, let's bump you off. What then happens, I mean, that's extreme for one level, but what then happens is the camp leaders come along, and the way that they discipline the people who are trying to kill her is they say, right, Ziggy, you go back to your room, and you naughty kids, we'll deal with you later. I mean, if a bunch of kids have just tried to murder someone, I think that's a scenario where you have to get police involved or mental health professionals involved. But yeah, the camp workers don't really do anything about it. And that leads on to the second problem, which is the camp leaders in this camp. They're all teenagers themselves. They look like they're 16, 17, 18 years old. So the problem that I've got, just like I had with the first film, is there are no adults around. Where are the adults? You've got parents who sent their kids to this camp for the summer to be supervised for a summer, and the leaders themselves are teenagers as well. So there's like no adult supervision around, which doesn't make sense. At least if there's eventually going to be a killer on the loose, you'd like to see some adults in the mix. But the idea that you've got all of these kids just running around and there's no one to look after them, no one to supervise them properly, is just stupid. And then my last problem with this film, which spills over again from part 1, was about the graphic violence towards young people. Listen, I understand it's an 18 certificate film. I understand it's going to be graphic. I understand it's going to be violent. I understand it's going to be gory, but the violence is always aimed at young people. Now, this film has been compared to things like Scream, I Know What You Did Last Summer, Final Destination. And again, you can say, well, they're teen slasher films as well, and it's young people who are being targeted by a killer. But with those films, we clearly can see that the actors who are playing the teenagers are 20-somethings. You know, when you've got Drew Barrymore or Neve Campbell in those roles, we get they're playing young people, but they're clearly older, okay? So when they're being attacked, when they're a victim of violence or the target of a killer, we kind of roll with it because they're older. And the other thing about those films is they kind of laugh at themselves a little bit. They're a little bit tongue-in-cheek. So you think about Final Destination. I think about one of the Final Destination films where there's a guy who is working out, is doing some exercise, he's using some gym equipment, and he's talking about how tough and how strong he is. And then the gym equipment ends up killing him. So it's kind of funny in a way. In this film, it doesn't seem funny in the slightest. It just seems very graphic and very horrible. So while there are moments when you can graphically see a young person being murdered, there's also moments when the killer is going at a young person and the young person disappears around the corner, and then you can still see the killer hacking at them, massacring them, killing them in an awful, violent way. And there's something psychological about that, because if something is happening off screen, as opposed to it happening and we're not seeing any of it, when you see a young person supposedly being on the floor or running away and then falling and then being killed by a killer who is hacking away at them, and it's very physical, it's very graphic in the way that they act, it does something in your mind where you think, actually, that's a horrible experience. I mean, it'd be horrible regardless, but you're also having to picture what that young person is seeing in that moment. So yeah, I just thought it was very graphic. And I know I'm probably sounding like an old man now. Listen, maybe it's because I recently became a father, okay? I'm just sharing that news with you. So maybe I'm a little bit more sensitive, but I just thought it was graphic in a way towards young people that it didn't need to be. And at least if there'd been some adults in the mix, maybe if the adults had also been a target of the killer, maybe it would have diluted some of that. But I just thought it was very graphic in its violence towards young people, which I had a mini beef with. Overall, I hoped this would be an improvement on part one. I thought part one was an okay film, and I was hoping that part two would be an improvement. And I gotta say, for me personally, if I'm being really honest, I didn't love it. I didn't enjoy it as much as I hoped I would enjoy it. I thought part one was decent. I think for this film, yes, it's like a straight up slasher horror. So if you're here for the kills, if you're here for the violence, if you're here seeing what the killer is going to do next, you're probably going to enjoy it. But for me, there was nothing special about it. It just was a flashback to what 1994 said it would be. So we see things that happen, and then there are little references in this film that explain things that happen in part one, and you're thinking, all right, that's clever. That's how that person ends up looking like that. Okay, now we understand that. So some of that stuff was clever, a bit of clever writing, but I'm talking about a bit. There wasn't lots of it. I just thought this film was, yeah, okay. So for that reason, I'm going to give Fear Street Part 2, 1978, a Marcus Loves Movies rating of 2.5 stars. Now, I've come this far, I've come all this way, I've seen 2 of the Fear Street movies. I've never read any of the books, so maybe you can tell me, well, Marcus, if you read the books, you'd understand it. Well, I believe there's like over 150 of them, so I'm not going to find the time to do that. So, I don't know, maybe there's lots of violence towards young people in the books, maybe that's how it is, and maybe I'm a bit of an old fuddy-duddy, but I just got to be honest with you guys. Some people will love this movie, maybe you'll watch it and you love it, and you'll disagree with me, but that's okay because we're all welcome to our opinions. But please let me know what you thought about Fear Street Part 2, 1978. Did you really enjoy the film, or was it a bit of a letdown for you? Were you hoping for more? The best way to do that is to let me know what you think in the comment section by leaving a comment. And also, whilst you're here, can I ask for you to give this video a like? And if you like movie reviews and discussions like this one, can I encourage you to subscribe to this YouTube channel? Listen, I'm going to watch Fear Street Part 3 because I've come this far, so I might as well go all the way right. And who knows, I might really enjoy Fear Street Part 3, 1666, when that comes out. I might really enjoy it. Listen, I'm not stubborn. If a film is good, I will give it its dues, I'll give it its credit. So stay tuned and I'll do a review of that film, and I will let you know what I thought of it. Thank you for watching this video. Take care of yourselves. Stay tuned for the next time I drop a video, and I hope to catch up with you soon. So until then, take care of yourselves and thanks for watching.